I'm hearing a lot of conflict right now around what's going to happen to the U.S. economy. There's a lot of people suffering right now. There's a lot of people that are struggling to pay their bills. There's a lot of people that are having a difficult time, but yet there are some people that are doing quite well. And I think it's a difficult time to understand what's coming. I know that there's a lot of talk about Bitcoin. There's a lot of talk about whether or not the stock market, the U.S. S&P 500, and what's going to happen with gold, and what's going to happen with Bitcoin. Where is the place to be now? People are trying to decide where the right place to be as you look to the future, right? Is the U.S. dollar going to continue to devalue? I think we all have that decision that we need to make and it's so hard to know when to make that choice. I know that a lot of people will just solve this question by diversifying, right? They'll put a little bit in Bitcoin, they'll put a little bit in equities in the stock market, and they'll put some in gold. And that's the only way that you can really hedge your bets. But there's many out there that have been saying that there's going to be a big correction, like as much as a 50% drop in the stock market. So let's just play out a scenario. Let's say the Fed cuts their interest rates and maybe they cut more than a quarter point. Maybe they cut an entire point. That may be a good thing for the economy. There's always a delayed impact on these things too. And what's going to happen to the bond market? Are people going to want to cash in their bonds, their U.S. treasuries, if the interest rates drop? Are they going to realize that maybe the returns on their investment in bonds is not going to be what they want? And so is there going to be a big transfer of dollars of sorts into these alternative assets? And I know that this is a very complicated subject that I'm talking to you today on, but if you're an investor or if you're trying to decide what the future, especially if you're a baby boomer or you're someone that has money in Bitcoin and in stocks and even bonds, which I don't actually own any bonds, so I never really invested in U.S. treasuries. I just didn't see the overall return on the investment there. Now, granted, it's always been a pretty low risk investment, but based on what I'm hearing right now, bonds are probably not what I would consider to be a low risk investment anymore. So I think there's probably going to be greater returns around assets. I keep hearing people say that, but the big question is that what's the proper asset to be in when we move into this next era after the interest rates are cut? Because there's probably going to be more printing, or the gold revaluation is the other thing that people are talking about. So I'm trying to decipher which direction is all this going to go. Is gold going to get revalued by the federal government, which means that they're going to use that extra money that's generated by reevaluating or revaluing gold to justify printing a bunch of money to put into the economy? Or are they going to take that extra money and put it into a Bitcoin reserve, which would drive up Bitcoin? So I think there's a lot of stuff that's going on with the Federal Reserve, with the Trump administration, around their crypto financial advisors. The Genius Act that was passed is really giving a glimpse of what the future looks like, and it's probably stablecoins plus Bitcoin. And I keep hearing that Ethereum is another one that had a big jump here recently because of the EU. looking at the Ethereum coin as a play that they want to be involved in. And that jumped up in value very rapidly as well. So we're in a very confusing kind of monetary situation. And I realize that a lot of people don't really pay that close of attention to these topics. And I just wanted to just casually mention them here and just raise that topic that if you're not paying attention to these and you have money invested or you have a bunch of cash in the bank or in some sort of a mutual fund or something like that, that it might be a good idea to dig into these topics a little bit to try and understand what the likelihood of what's going to happen. So a lot of people, I'm hearing two stories here. I'm hearing that we're about to head into a bull market. And then there's other people that are saying we're probably within 6 months to a year from a 50% market correction, which could align with kind of like a consequence of a significant interest rate reduction. And then if we revalue the price of gold, then that puts us in a situation where there's just a lot more cash in the market. And I think we all know what happens to cash when cash is infused into the economy is that it elevates asset prices, which I think we all know what asset prices are. Assets are tangible things that you own, like a stock or a house. We could possibly see house prices go up, though I'm a little not sure that's going to happen because of the inventory levels in the housing market. Even if there's a cash infusion, that isn't necessarily going to drive up housing prices. It'll make it more accessible for people to take loans again to buy a house. So that may clean out the inventory of homes as more people are able to finance a house. But that doesn't alleviate the fact that housing prices have gone up a lot. So as you can see, I've been thinking a lot about this myself and knowing where to put my assets to take advantage of whatever monetary shift that's coming, because I do feel like there's a monetary shift coming. There's going to be something that happens to the US dollar that is not good for someone that's holding cash. I think that is the overriding message that I've gotten from many people that are talking about these topics. I'm talking about economic experts, financial planners, people that are really worried about what they're seeing happen to the elevated level of debt that we have in this country and how that's translating into more and more of taxes being used to pay the interest on bonds. So if we lower the interest rates for bonds, that's going to create an environment where we're paying less interest from taxes. Plus, we're also seeing tariffs start to hit now. There was a little bit of a delay on that. And so the tariff impacts could create a certain amount of justification or real increases or inflation in prices. So what to do? That's the question. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is if I have a big stock portfolio, do I put it all into Bitcoin? Do I shift part of it into Bitcoin and put other part of it into gold? What do I do with my cash, right? Do I hold on to cash? I do think it's possible to be able to liquidate Bitcoin pretty quickly. I do see that Bitcoin does tend to have a higher rate of return on average over the last 5 years or so. But the question is that going to continue? Bitcoin has followed fairly closely to the returns that have happened or the declines and increases that have happened to the equities market or the stock market. So there is some examples of Bitcoin being very aligned with the stock market. And if that continues, then being in the stock market may be equally good to being in Bitcoin. But the stock market generally hasn't gone up in value at the same pace that Bitcoin has. So it depends on the time scale. I hear some people say that Bitcoin could go up to $300 out or a coin here, any $300,000 sometime soon. But I also hear people say Bitcoin could pull back. What if the stock market collapses and we see a 50% reduction in the stock market? Does that mean that Bitcoin is going to collapse 50%? Or is Bitcoin going to be the beneficiary of people selling their stocks and shifting it into what is perceived to be as more long-term secure area of Bitcoin that will potentially see a big influx of investment and cash into Bitcoin as we get closer and closer to all the Bitcoin being bought up and owned? We're still seeing a few million Bitcoin out there that are still available. And once those Bitcoins are gone, they're gone. And then we get into a situation as, will anybody be willing to sell the Bitcoin? So there's so many conflicting topics. The market is so confused right now. People are, I think big investors like Warren Buffett or whatever, I'm seeing he's cashing out equities and stocks and holding cash and is ready to pounce on other opportunities as they come up. Obviously, he's anticipating a market correction of some sort. Ray Dalio, a resident of Connecticut, which is where I'm at, has been saying that we're going to see a dollar devaluation and inflation, and there's going to be a big correction in the market coming, a collapse in the dollar, which means, but I have a hard time seeing it, the U.S. government and the Trump administration and the Fed allowing the economy to collapse and the dollar to collapse anytime soon. They're going to do anything and everything they can to keep that from happening. But I am bullish on Bitcoin, just based on what I've seen from my own investment in Bitcoin, and my own investment in the stock market has been very good. I'm in both places right now, but I think the key takeaway is stay informed about the direction that this is going. Follow all of the kind of signals that are out there. What's the employment levels? What's the consumer price index? Now, granted, can we trust a lot of those numbers? That's another big question. I think a lot of that stuff has been gained and has been used as a political tool, and it's not always accurate. I know that the employment picture, I don't think is accurate because it doesn't take into account people that are long-term unemployed. It only counts people that are on unemployment benefits. So it's not a complete picture of the entire labor market. And if we've been basing our economic choices and decisions on numbers that are underreported, then that's going to take us down a bad path. Thank you for watching this. I know it was a little bit scatterbrained. I'm not sure I gave you a concise conclusion to this, but I am leaning more towards thinking that Bitcoin will be the best place to be for a large amount of your investment as you look to the future. Increasingly feeling that. But I also think, let's say, just to give an example, like a stock like a Tesla or a NVIDIA, or maybe even some other kind of AI companies, maybe highly valued companies for investment as you look to the future too, even if we see the economy go down a little bit. So just be smart out there, keep an eye on what's going on, and thank you for watching my Drive Talk this time. So thanks for watching, and I'll bring you another episode, and hopefully these talks will get you thinking. And that's all I'm trying to do here, is to spark you to contemplate these big important topics that have an interlinkage to each other and see what the future looks like. I'm always very focused on what the future looks like and trying to navigate it as best as I can. So thank you for watching. Like my Rob Greenlee channel down below and follow my channel. So thank you so much for watching today. I appreciate it. Bye.